What up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans? It's Matty Peveril and Marky D from Steelers Touch Down Under, coming to you on a recorded show all about free agency. Mark, to kick things off, how are you doing?
Mate, I'm doing pretty well. This is our episode, Mad Monday? Is that correct? Is that right?
We're going to start. We're going to start talking about the Mad Monday. But I want to know.
Should I bring up the Mad Monday? What it means right now? Or are we going to lead into it?
Sure, go for it.
All right. So I don't know what Americans, basically most of our viewers here, and we appreciate you guys on the audio on the YouTube side as well. But I don't know if you guys have heard of Mad Monday. But I don't know even if Americans will they have that where the college guys they finish the season or they finish their sporting. You can do it pretty much for any sport, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, like it's any sport you do for the whole season. If you win or lose, the next day after Mad Monday, you go out in town, you have a few sherbets, and you get a bit crazy, right?
So sherbets, Mark means a few drinks, a few beverages.
Yeah, a few beverages, and yeah, we have that for like the rugby league scene. We have it for like I guess soccer.
Maybe we had it. We had it one year when I played rugby in my 20s, and we had the Mad Monday, but we did it on a Sunday, and Mad Monday was more like Hangover Monday.
Yeah, so, I was going to say, how'd you feel after that? You feel pretty dusty?
That was pretty bad. That was a big day.
Yeah. And even like, blokes and Sheilas or blokes and girls, they both do it. Like the blokes go out, have a good time. The Sheilas, if they play hockey or netball or soccer or, football as well, rugby league, some of the girls play that. I've seen them, they go out crazy too. It's like, that scares me seeing a pack of like, attractive, hockey players on a Mad Monday. Normally you walk up to them, but sometimes I just walk away. I'm like, whoa. Shit.
So the reason why Mark and I picked Mad Monday was that it's sort of that Monday after whatever's happened on the weekend, and it's your Monday in the US. We're doing this, so we record this sometime so that it lands on your Monday in the US. But it's just a reaction to anything that happened. Also, we're launching this show off in March Madness. It's free agency madness. So anyway, it all just fits. We're calling it Mad Monday. Bit of an Aussie flavor there, reaction to what's going on either today or what's been happening in the last week or so. So obviously, the title of the show is really about free agency and the frenzy. As we go live to air, I don't know what, Mark, 5 or 6 hours ago, we had the by live to air, we mean record. 5 or 6 hours ago, Derek Carr announcement, with the Saints, there's the $150 million deal. There's guaranteed bonuses of like 50, then he gets more after 3 years or whatever it is. We're not here to talk about Derek Carr. He's not a Pittsburgh Steeler, but certainly you saw it last week, some of the announcements with a few players being cut or being able to be let go or re-signed or what have you. The free agency frenzy is definitely in full swing now. I had a report in the last day or so around them definitely cutting William Jackson III. I don't think that's a big shock to anyone. It's not a definite yet, hasn't been announced, but that seems to be where they're going with it. So what better time to talk free agency? We've done a few mock drafts as well. We've just finished the combine, so I wanted to give you guys something different. I guess, Mark, it'd be good for us to get a bit of an overview, like for me to do a bit of an overview on Steelers and salary cap and those sorts of things that come into play. But if there was an overall theme or expectation that you have for the Steelers and free agency this year, what is that?
So for me, it's sign the key guys. I know that sounds funny, but sign the key guys like Sutton or sign the key guys like Terrell Owens, the key pieces over the next 3 or 4 years that can, help stabilize this, organization. Like I know there could be a possibility that Sutton might leave and a possibility that Edmonds might leave too. But if you sign those guys, then you won't have any weakness in that area, right? So the minute if they don't sign, then you have to go and find another safety. The minute they don't sign, you've got to find not only one corner in the draft, maybe two. So I think you try and figure out something where Sutton's been a veteran guy. He's not the splashiest guy out there or the craziest cornerback in the league, but he fits our system and he works well with us and he plays some good football when the team is playing well on defense. And he's a veteran guy in the locker room that is turning into a good player and maybe a valuable need. So even for instance, that the signing Spillane will, in those parts will give you a better understanding what might happen in the draft. So I think the Steelers will go and do the Steeler thing. I don't think they'll bring in any high priced, super free agent like Ramsey and as much as I want to see Bobby Wagner or someone like that, they probably won't do that. But if they can work the numbers, and I know you've got some ideas about the numbers and stuff like that, then everything should be fine, in my opinion. Like this is a young team, and it's a young team on offense, and some really star set of players on defense that sign a few, and then next minute we're just back in it, man. We're back in how we always are.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because if you look at if you look at snaps, you mentioned a couple of players there. If you actually look at snaps coming into free agency, so Over the Cap have this cool chart. The Steelers are sixth in the league for the most snaps entering on the defensive side of the football entering free agency. So that means of all the players that played snaps on the defensive side, 34% of our players that play defensive snaps are going to be entering free agency, and we are the second highest in I think it's in linebacker. No, not linebacker. In safety and cornerback, we're in the top 10. We're in the top 10. You know, in a couple of other spots as well. So it's kind of an interesting sort of situation the Steelers find themselves in, and it's very different to the offense. They also have a free agency chart that looks like that sort of shows you the undrafted free agent, or the unrestricted free agents and restricted free agents. The Steelers have one unrestricted free agent and one restricted free agent from offensive starters that are on offensive side. So that's Derek Watt and Steven Sims. But on the defensive side, we have 4 unrestricted free agents, defensive starters. Now, that's a lot to replace in 11 players. And on backups, we have another 4, and we have a restricted free agent in James Pierre. So you've got 8 defensive, key contributor players on defense that are coming, that are now off contract, that are available in free agency. So the Steelers have got 2 choices: either bring those guys back, or you've actually got to, you got to fill those spots with other players. So it's just an interesting situation that they find themselves in.
What do you think is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers' first move? I've heard there are reports now, that Kazi, there may be talks, or was rumors that, I don't know, it was talks, but it was definitely rumors about signing Kazi. What do you think is the first move for the Pittsburgh Steelers to get done in the next few days?
I think they're going to work out their cuts. They're going to work out deals with people that obviously don't come into the effect until the new league year on March 15th. And obviously you've got the tampering period before that. It's a good question. I want to start off with salary cap stuff. So right now the Steelers have a projected salary cap according to Over the Cap as of their Over the Cap Steelers specific report on the 21st of February. The Steelers have $1 million in projected salary cap space. I was going to say calorie sap. The projected salary cap space, $1 million. That's 17 in the NFL. I'm going to go through other sort of costs, but just so you know, the offense is $88.2 million projected right now. The defense is $128.9 million. Now, overall, they have 18 UFAs, unrestricted free agents. They have 4 restricted free agents. They have the least amount of free agent snaps, as I mentioned there, 859, that they're going to lose in free agency, but they have the 4th most on defense overall. That's a big problem. Now, if you look at the valuation, so the performance, those players that are coming off contract are like $50 million worth of support. And that's about 29th in the league. So it's not like it's our absolute best players, but it is contributors. Now, again, you asked me first move. The Steelers have $1 million that we said there right now of the 224.2, I think it is, $1 million of the salary cap that's been updated to for 2023. There are 4 players that you save money if cut. William Jackson, the third one we just mentioned, $12.176 million is saved according to Over the Cap. If he's cut, 0 dead money. Miles Jack, if he's cut, $8 million saved, dead money $3 million. Trubisky, if he is cut or traded, dead money $2 million, you save $8 million. Now, they're not going to cut Trubisky. They might trade him. They might choose to keep him. Like $10 million is his cap hit. That's not very much, even for a backup quarterback in the NFL. I think he will move, even if he moves on draft day. My gut feel is leaning more toward him moving than staying. Of course, Omar Khan will say he wants him around. If you can have a backup of Trubisky's talent for $10 million, that's good value in this league right now, particularly seeing Derek Carr's contract, right? And then you've got Akello Witherspoon. He's got a cap hit of $5.4 million, 5.482. If he leaves, you save $4 million there. And if you cut Gunner, you save $2 million. And then there's a couple of other guys too. So then you can also, one of the other things they talk about is restructures. So roughly you can pick up about $26 million or more in cap space cuts The ones I mentioned there, if you cut all of them, it's actually a bit more than that. You actually end up with like $34 million. But that's assuming that they're not going to cut Trubisky. Then it becomes back to 26 million. And then if you restructure TJs, you can find 12 million. If you restructure Minkers, you can find 10 million. You can find another 7 million with Hayward. So you put all those two together, there's about 60 or so million dollars the Steelers can find. So when you ask me the question of what are the Steelers going to do first, I think they're going to try and agree price points with free agents like a Sutton, a KZ, maybe not an Edmonds. It will depend on what they think of the draft class. They're definitely going to definitely offer something for Spillane. And then, although I think he will be more of a, commodity than what people realize, they'll work out those, and then they're going to start making cuts to make that happen. They're not going to sign people without making cuts. I'm interested to see.
That was my second question. So for a technical aspect, do they have to cut them to get the money and use that money to sign someone?
Yes.
They can't be like, okay, I'll cut after I sign someone.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. Okay. So the unrestricted free agents on offense are Gentry, Boykin, Watt, Derek, Snell, Trenton, Scott, Mason Rudolph, Jesse Davis, and then restricted free agents. So then you've got to put an offer in for them. I think it's $2.746 million. It's $6 million for the first round tender. It's $4 million or so for the second round tender, and then conditional is $2.746 million. I think I read this 2 days ago, so I hope I got that right. And then restricted free agents. So they're the restricted free agents in Sims, Hassenhauer, McNichols, and then on defense, unrestricted free agents. You got Sutton, Edmonds, Devin Bush, Ogunjobi, Robert Spillane, Malik Reed, Chris Wormley, Tyson Alualu, I think will retire at 36. DeMonte KZ, Kyle Joseph, Marcus Allen. They should not be bringing back Joseph and Allen. And then James Pierre's a restricted free agent. So there's a lot of guys out there. But if you think about, again, I would try and trade Miles Jack before I cut him. Even if you get a fifth rounder, the Steelers don't have a fifth rounder. You could find someone there that's a developmental project. Or who's closer to being ready for the NFL than like a seventh rounder, obviously. But William Jackson III could buy you back maybe an Ogunjobi and a KZ, right? If you cut Miles Jack, you can probably re-sign Cameron Sutton. And I think most Steeler fans would make that swap every day of the week. If you cut Witherspoon, you probably bring back Robert Spillane. So I kind of see it as almost like a trade with each of these players, like you're trading against yourself. And that's why I think trying to trade a Trubisky, if that gets you to bring back Mason Rudolph on, let's say, $6 million, you save $2 million. That's $2 million more that you had that you can bring, almost bring back another guy. If they don't, I will be shocked if they don't cut Gunner. I will say that at some point.
He's certainly gone for sure. They got Anthony Miller there for.
Yeah, I don't know why you keep Gunner Olszewski. That yes, it's a $617,000 dead money cap hit, but I don't know why you wouldn't want that $2 million back.
But he didn't really do much. He got his job taken by Steven Sims anyway. He's a punt guy, and I guess if Calvin Austin can return punts, there's no real need there for Gunner Olszewski at all. There's too many receivers.
Look, Sims is a restricted free agent, but you can just move the $2 million from Olszewski there, right? And you keep someone that we work their way into the offense anyway. So that helps them. I think they'll come to some sort of deal with Gentry, but it'll be interesting to sort of see. I think you're going to restructure a couple of players. I see them less likely to restructure Cam Hayward unless they're going to do void years. I think that gets a bit technical when you're a certain number of years into the deal. I would be shocked if they didn't restructure TJ Watts. I think that just makes sense. And I think Minkers comes down to which free agent they really want to go after here. But and if they want to go after a big name. But effectively, like an over the cap to say this, and I completely agree, for a team that's used to not actually being big players in free agency, this year they have the money if they want to do something to really make a splash. It's just going to come down to what they want to do. Some of these players, like between Sutton, Edmonds, Ogunjobi, Spillane, although I don't think Spillane should have to take it because he's on the lower end, and KZ, one of those guys is going to have to take some sort of homegrown discount. But the Steelers don't just have to do restructures. They can pad contracts at the back. They can add voidable years. There's a heap of different things they can do. And I think for some of these players, like you know, I do think this market for Spillane will be higher, but like I sit there with like a, you know, KZ and an Ogunjobi, and I'm like, what really is the market there for those guys? You know, like, you know, I sort of question that. So I think it's going to be interesting to see. And maybe the Steelers be smart. Maybe the Steelers do what they did with Edmonds last year with a couple of these guys and say, hey, test the market, see what you get. We've given you this offer. If you don't get anything in the first 2 days of free agency, offer still stands. Maybe that's the path they go down.
So basically over the first few days will be them cutting and restructuring and having an idea who's going to come back, that kind of stuff, right? Getting rid of the guys, like you said, that might happen to free money and then use that money to go and chase, you know, I guess some other free agents to come in. But I really don't, every year we get hyped up about bringing in a big name. It never happens. But I'm kind of okay with it because the big names that do happen, the teams don't go very well. They pay too much money to one player and then they go nowhere. Whereas the Steelers seem to just grab, you know, you like I didn't know who Mason Cole was last year. Like, who's that guy? You know, and the next minute he's playing really well, good football.
And so when you look at Mason Cole and the Draft Network, we're talking about this about a week ago. You look at free agents coming off contract. There's a lot of the second tier offensive linemen in this free agency class. And like that, you can go out at like the Orlando Browns out there, right? From the Chiefs. Like he'd be our starting left tackle in 3 seconds. He's the top left tackle, top lineman on the board, basically, on the free agency board right now. Are the Steelers going to pay him $20 or $30 million, or like let's call it $22 million a year? I don't think so. Do they want to bring in a, you know, Mike McGlinchey from the 49ers? Maybe. You know, he might only cost you, you know, $8 to $10 million a year. Alex Blythe, the center I wanted them to bring in 2 years ago when he was playing the Rams, he played at the Seahawks. He's a guy you might go after. Garrett Bradbury, the Vikings center, is someone that I think can be, be an addition to this team. Chris Hubbard, the tackle from the Browns, he's not a bad guy. He's 32, provides you some depth there. So that there are some names that you can go in and add. People talk about Eric Fisher. You know, I'm thinking I'm kind of past that sort of stuff. But, you know, there are some names out there. There's George Fant at the Jets, who a lot of Steel fans thought they'd bring him in last year. So, you know, the offensive line's there. I think one thing I would also say is part of this OTC report, you know, they talk about the spending. And it's kind of interesting. The Steelers are in the top half, apart from wide receiver, in terms of spending on offense. So they're like 5th for interior line, 15th for offensive tackle, 12th for quarterback, 11th for tight end, 10th for running back. But on the defense, we're 5th for interior defensive line, 8th for safety right now, 31st for cornerback. That'll change with Sutton or whoever they bring in. 14th for edge because Highsmith's quite cheap, still on that rookie deal. And then you've got linebacker at 32. So we pay the least amount for linebacker. But you know, we've got to upgrade that position. So that's going to change. So I think, you know, Steelers are going to have to make trade-offs though. There are going to be opportunity costs. And this is where it'll be interesting to see. Like I always think of the totality of the offseason in terms of what happens you do in free agency, then when do you go into what do you do in the draft? Because we're not going to be able to assess what they do in free agency until they finish the draft, because who's to say, you know, if they go out and get a cornerback, right? And my opinion's changed. And there'll be another show this week coming out on that for the War Room series on this channel. My opinion's changed on one of the top cornerbacks in the draft. I don't think the Steelers,
really?
if he was available, I don't think the Steelers should draft him. My opinion seriously changed, and people are going to disagree with me, but I'll explain why on that show. But cornerback might be off the board. We might go out and sign Sutton and someone else. We might not even care about Sutton. We might care about one of the other cornerbacks that are available there in free agency. And then so the whole draft landscape changes. I would say, having had a look at free agency, I do think DT, linebacker, and offensive line, particularly offensive line in the first round, are more likely than I do think cornerback is likely.
Here's a question for you. How many players do you think will add via new players from other teams do you think will come in?
That's a
rough estimate. We had about 5 last year, didn't we not?
On offense or defense?
Both, the whole team. Didn't we have 5 or 6 last year?
Well, it depends if you call that as part of free agency or then, like, are you talking about just the free agency period or cuts down the track? Like, I don't mean to be technical, but it's hard for me to.
The first part, the first few weeks of I just want to know how many players you think are going to come in because
5.
we're going to sign. We're going to sign
5.
5. We're going to sign our guys, right? Try and sign our guys, fill gaps in. But
Oh, you mean from other teams completely?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good question.
Like I said, we brought over Miles Jack last year. We got the Steelers got in Mason Cole, James Daniels, and now they're becoming Steeler players. Like
I'd say a minimum of 4. Yeah, 4.
So 4 new players in certain roles.
Yeah.
Right. Any of those 4? Because I got a follow-up question. Any of those 4 going to be a big star like a Jalen Ramsey or the ones that all Steelers fans, or some Steelers fans.
Well, Jalen Ramsey's not a free agent. I don't know what you and I both know who's been peddling this in the Steeler Nation world, but but Ramsey isn't a free agent. So I don't know why people are on this thing about him coming to Steelers. He's not a free agent. He's contracted by the Rams. You have to trade for him.
Right. All right. Then what about the guys like Tremaine Edmonds or something like a big name, like someone everyone knows? Is any what are the chances of that happening? Like.
Yeah, put it right. Take it in good. This is a good example, right? Would you rather bring back Terrell Edmonds at like $6 million, right? Or would you rather pay Adrian Amos, the safety from the Packers, right?
Oh, he's good.
Admittedly, Amos is a couple of years older, but you could bring in Amos for let's say on average of $10 million a year. What would you rather do, right?
I do like Terrell, though. I like the way he plays, but I also know that Amos
correct. But I also think they've got to get younger in the draft. I think they should draft a safety in the first 4 rounds. So I just look at it that way, right? Javon Hargrave, do you really want to spend $13 million on that position of a guy who's 30? I wouldn't, right? Do you want to spend $8 million on Sutton, who knows the defense? And I could imagine that, and I'm happy with that. Or do you want to spend maybe 12 to 13 million if you can get him on a deal and get Marcus Peters from the Ravens? Is Marcus Peters a better player than Cameron Sutton? Probably. Deion Jones, the linebacker that ended up at the Browns after being at the Falcons, he's someone I've always liked.
Right. He was a good one too.
I really want the Steelers to look at him. I think you should bring him in alongside bringing back Spillane. So I think it comes down to some of these decisions that you make. Everything's an opportunity. The Steelers will build through the draft as they always do, and so I think that it will come down to it'll come down to what gives them the best value in free agency, and then they can figure it out through the draft.
Well, here's another one too. What about I know a lot of the audio guys and Steeler Nation out there will love this. What about Bud Dupree? That's another rumor that because he's getting cut, that automatically think that we're going to go and sign Bud Dupree. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my question back would be, how much are you going to pay Bud Dupree?
Right.
Jadeveon Clowney, I just accidentally shut that window. Jadeveon Clowney, I think was $8 or $9 million last year. Is Bud worse? Probably. Are you going to pay Bud $5 million a year? Is Bud going to take $5 million a year?
Yeah, what's Bud's role going to be with the Steelers? Does he want to be a starter? Does he want to be a backup?
You tell me. I would say back to whoever says that. Malik Reed delivered value of $1.541 million last year. I think he was on over $3 million or so, or $2 million. Do you Bud? Did Bud deliver much more value? I don't want to pull it up because my internet is having an issue right now. But I don't know. He's been injured, so can Bud deliver us $5 million in value? And I'll give you a good example. Do you know Alex Highsmith was the 14th highest player for delivering value over what they were paid average pay per year? Alex Highsmith delivered something like $13 million more. Now, usually the Steelers have someone in the top 3 because of TJ. Kenny Pickett was 24th, I think, in the league. Kenny Pickett delivered $17 million over his average pay per year, which is incredible. Actually, Highsmith must have been more. He must have been 20. I might be able to pull that up on my phone. But point being, is Bud going to deliver you $5 million in value? Now, yes, you could say he might back with the Steelers, but what happens if he doesn't? That's my question. What if he doesn't?
Yeah, then we're all yelling Bud the Dud again, aren't we? We're all, we're saying that's one of the worst mistakes ever. I just find it interesting, though, because, obviously in the fantasy land or the Madden style, it's to me, oh, it'd be fun to bring back Bud Dupree, but how much gonna pay him? How much? What role will he play? You know, obviously they signed Jarvis Jones, so obviously he's going to have some kind of role at depth if he makes a team. They're behind Highsmith and TJ.
Jarvis Jones or Jameer Jones?
Oh, Jameer Jones. Sorry, I got the other one wrong. He was the bust, wasn't he? He was the
Alex Highsmith, $15 million above his salary number. Yeah, sorry, Kenny Pickett was 13.69. Yeah.
But this is what happens like when everyone gets cut. I even read an article too about just now the free agent frenzy, what's all crazy is the Eric Kendricks becomes available for the Steelers, and like we make links and associations.
That's all hype. Eric Kendricks from the Vikings, that's the middle linebacker from the Vikings you're talking about there. He's a 4'3" linebacker. Yes, he's in coverage, but he's not even 230 pounds. How is he going to stack up in the AFC North? Why does that make sense when you've got like Terrell Edmonds if you're bringing him back? Like, yeah, he's a coverage guy, but why wouldn't you go get a Deion Jones the same way? Like Kendricks, this is his final contract. He's going to want money for it. And I don't want to pay, I think he's 32 or something. I don't want to pay a 32-year-old $9 million a year to play linebacker. Why is that any different to paying Miles Jack like $8 million a year?
But that was my point, though. My point was when the players are cut, we go, oh my goodness, he's cut. Let's go get him. You know, it doesn't
make any sense. Like, I see it all the time. I see reactions like that from out there from people looking to, like, we're on YouTube. You have to have a title that's interesting. But and the Steelers news is the William Jackson III news today. Like, if, you know, you want to wonder why we have the title, but you can't just mock any play. Like, and by mock, obviously we're talking about mock drafts, but you can't just mock any free agent to the Steelers. Do they fit the scheme? Do they fit what the Steelers are trying to do? Like, and I see this stuff from some people. Like, there was a player last year. I'm trying to remember who it was, and people kept saying, "Oh, the Steelers should get him." And I'm like even Luke Van Ness in the draft, right? Luke Van Ness is 6'5" and 273 pounds. What position is he going to play on the Steelers? The Steelers are on a 3-4. He's too big to play outside linebacker, and he's got to gain 20 pounds to play defensive end. Why would the Steelers go get him right now? Like,
I want to figure out what the other player was. Who was the other player in your mind?
There was a player last year that kept this. Someone kept mocking him to the Steelers, and I was like, I don't know why.
Free agent or a draft?
Yeah, there was a free agent. I can't remember who it was, but it made absolutely zero sense. I just can't for the life of me remember who it was.
Wasn't OBJ? Was it OBJ's mock to everyone?
No. It was
Oh boy.
Might have been a cornerback that's only plays man coverage. Like, it was just something silly. There was a linebacker as well
I even fell into the Honey Badger stuff, and I realized that Terrell.
Yeah, Honey Badger as well. Like, does that fit? Like, there are a lot of safeties. The Steelers play traditional. You have a free safety and you have a strong safety. And yes, Mika comes up in the box, but usually we have that third safety, or we have a slot corner like a Sutton go toward the back, right? There are some teams in the NFL like the Bengals that play a left and right safety. You have Dax Hill on one side, and you have the Bengals also have like Von Bell that they bring in sub package, but like and why Dax Hill was getting used to it, and Dax Hill can play cornerback. So it's a tough example. But the idea of bringing Daxton Hill last year in the draft was that you'd have Jesse Bates on one side and Daxton Hill on the other. I think the Broncos play a dual safety as well a lot of the time, but like, and by that I mean a left and right safety. So there's two different schools of thought on it. But I see safeties mocked to the Steelers all the time. Like, I suggested KZ in January last year, way before anyone else. I've got the receipts to prove it. I talked about him end of Jan, early Feb. But I talked about him from depth, from a slot position and a free safety.
Yeah.
Right? You don't go sign KZ if you're not going to re-sign Edmonds, or you re-sign KZ, you might have another safety in mind in free agency, or you are planning to draft a safety in the draft. KZ is not going to be the starting strong safety for the Steelers. Like, that's not happening. And I see these things from some people about this player is going to be with the Steelers, and I just think it's ludicrous because some of these players don't fit what they're trying to do. It does not. That's
just all part of the news and speculation, the media machine that we have created around everyone on the internet. And everyone does it, but I agree with you. I like KZ, man. KZ is one of the sure tacklers and a real physical tackler for this team, and hopefully they can sign him back. I think it's one of my favorites if he does sign back.
So look, last 30 seconds to wrap up the show. I guess, Mark, I've done a lot of talking in this one, but I mean, how are you feeling as a fan going into Steelers free agency frenzy?
Fine. I'm not worried at all. No, I always like now before doing the content stuff that we're doing now, like on YouTube, right? Before that stuff, I was like, oh yeah, you just go about your normal business and you're like, oh, they signed that guy. But now getting involved in like the media speculation, I did get hyped up last year. There was a tiny bit of me that thought Aaron Rodgers was coming over the Steelers. Didn't happen. I'm so glad it didn't. There was a tiny thought of me that Honey Badger was coming over. I'm so glad it didn't, right? The hype up for that, those kind of things. I'm a bit hyped up about, they could an idea if Bobby comes over or Tremaine Edmonds, but we all know the Steelers go and do the signings like Mason Cole or James Daniels that you don't really know who they are. They've been in the NFL 3 or 4 years. They're good. They're solid at position. In a Madden rating, they're like 75 to 80 or whatever. They're just good blokes there. I see him doing the exact same thing, cutting a few players.
And I'll tell you right, like, and if any fans criticize it, the reality is the Steelers were 14th in the league last year for value over the cap numbers that they spent. Right. So believe it or not, the Steelers got like $20 million more from their players than what they paid for in production.
Yeah, well, I just think they're going to cut the right people, save the right money, bring in guys. You'll see some guy from, I don't know, the Jaguars or the Jets. You're like, who's that guy? And I've never heard of that guy in my life. And then he'll be like a key piece to the team. For me, like last year, I've said it 3 times now, Mason Cole with that guy. Like, who's Mason Cole? And then I started to grow on him. I like him now as a center, much better than Kendrick Green. He was confident throughout the season. So we'll see stuff like that. I'm not worried at all. I trust the organization. They're winning. They have young Kenny Pickett. They get a few guys, cut a few guys, and then move on to the draft. But we will see some names coming that we have no idea about, and at key positions you might see maybe outside linebacker. I don't know, maybe middle linebacker, defensive tackle, someone like that. But I don't see them going and getting a high price guy. It never happens, which is good overall. And
with that, that's going to wrap up this week's Mad Monday. Hope you liked the show. If you did, click the like button, hit the subscribe button.